The RFID overhead EAS system is a discrete alternative to traditional pedestal or concealed EAS floor systems. Designed to be installed above a store exit, this RFID-enabled system provides merchandise protection while maintaining the appearance of the store entrance. It is easy to deploy, provides wide exit coverage, and takes up no floor space. Sensormatic's RFID overhead EAS system.
Hello, I'm Gus Downing, publisher and editor of the D&D Daily, and this is the LP News Network. With the presence of two RFID subject matter experts here attending the LPRC Impact 2018 conference at the University of Florida, we simply had to take this opportunity to sit down with them and spend a few minutes and get some of their thoughts about how RFID is progressing and impacting the retail industry. But before we start, however, we'd like to thank once again Sensormatic for sponsoring today's session, especially given their role that they're playing in this RFID deployment. With us today is Ned McCauley, Director of Retail Strategic Accounts at Tyco Integrated Security, and Joe Coll, VP Asset Protection Operations and Administration for Macy's. Gentlemen, thanks for being here today.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having us.
You know, Ned, can you give us a little background for our viewers on Sensormatic's role in RFID deployment and the current market position?
Sure. Well, everybody knows Sensormatic, as the name would imply, has been in the sensor business for quite a while, a little over 50 years at this point. And so this is really just an evolution of what started out as a really simple company and a simple technology. And just as the rest of the world and technology has advanced, so has the sensor business. So RFID is really a subcomponent of the Internet of Things. We apply it to retail to solve specific problems, and that's our space. So it was a natural that we would invest in software capabilities, professional service capabilities, and then bring what used to be a point solution in EAS into an integrated solution, which is RFID. So it's just natural space for Sensormatic to be a part of, and it's been a growth space.
And how do you see the market developing and growing over the next 5 years?
Well, it's come a long way in the last 5 years, I would say. I used to stand up and explain to folks what RFID was, why it would benefit them, and all the tactical components of education. We're long past that now. RFID is no longer an emerging technology. It's a mature technology that's ready. And so we're seeing mass scale that's driven by a number of things. You have much lower cost per item to apply, so that clearly drives adoption. You have standards in place that certainly help everyone focus on the same way of doing things. And then you have lots of use cases and retailers that have proven the value of it. So if you look at cost benefit, you look at scale and standards, and you look at use case validation, I'd say they're the three things that have gotten us to this point. So to answer your question simply, I think it's not a reach to suggest that any apparel retailer worldwide 5 years from now will be using RFID as if it's just common practice.
And the LPRC, the Research Council, they've been kind of heavily involved in your rollout at Macy's, correct?
They have been. Early on, they helped validate the theories we had and how to apply this powerful capability towards the asset protection business.
And they kind of were with you on the first store rollout.
That's correct. We deployed a store here in Gainesville, Macy's store. We partnered with Macy's and the LPRC. The LPRC provided some interns to help evaluate the data that we were getting out of the system. We were able really to test and learn close to the campus, get real-time feedback both from Macy's and the LPRC, and that helped us fine-tune the solution.
How was the test? I mean, what did it really tell Macy's about RFID and such?
Maybe I'll let Joe take that
Yeah,
one.
Joe,
I have
go
my
ahead.
opinion.
Give
but
us a little background and history on it.
Certainly. You know, from an RFID perspective in Macy's, it's been a long journey, which is good. Sometimes long can be perceived as a negative, but it's been good because it's continued to provide a valuable insight for the company. When we started out in RFID, it was about merchandise visibility in the store, making sure that we were just represented appropriately in the store on product compared to what we owned inside of the building. And then we grew that into merchandise replenishment, being able to have accurate on-hands of the product that we've got in our store, so that way when a customer comes in, they truly understand what is inside of the store. And then you look at the world of, omni is certainly an overused term at this point, but it is real, and brick and mortar and the online shopping has completely merged. And when you look at Macy's as a department store, our stores are fulfillment centers. So with RFID, we have the ability to tie the two together. A customer can either walk into our building with a smartphone and understand in that moment what we actually own in the building, or as they're shopping on Macys.com, they have the ability to understand if they want to go to the store itself, they know what's actually readily available inside of that building based on the RFID in the store.
How long did it take you to get here to this spot, if I may ask?
It's been about 5 or 6 years that we've been on this journey, but like I said, it has evolved over that time. It is certainly you learn from the initial rollout, and we are in new waters here at this point when we're talking about additional use cases for RFID with how we've started to deploy it from an asset protection standpoint in our stores, and it's truly revolutionized how we manage asset protection within Macy's.
What are some of the public numbers of success or of impact with RFID at Macy's?
It's in the locations that we've put in the RFID from an asset protection use case standpoint, we've seen significant shrink reduction within those locations compared to other locations that did not have the technology inside of it. So it's been quite substantial to see the results from it, the success that we've driven, not only from an RFID standpoint for the store and selling standpoint, but also from an asset protection use case.
Is it helping the out-of-stock problem, which, excuse me, many journalists and folks have written about being a multi-billion-dollar issue for the retail industry? I mean, is it helping Macy's resolve that issue?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a definitive tool for out-of-stock SKUs. It allows you every single month to reset what you own inside of a building, and that is completely valuable. And then when you look at what we're doing from an asset protection standpoint and being able to identify, Ned had talked about EAS technology. EAS technology has served its purpose and continues to serve its purpose for us. We're certainly not moving away from that in any way, shape, or form. However, when you have an EAS alert at a door, it's really a simple alert. It does not tell you much other than something left your building, whether it's 1 item or 100 items. It is just going to tell you something left the building. When you introduce RFID from an asset protection use case, you now answer all of the who, the what, the where, the when, and then obviously the why we'll take care of as we start to drive that data and be able to understand who the person is that's responsible. But RFID answers a lot more than EAS did for us in the past.
Sure. Now, if you look at the life cycle of a tag, has Macy's, and you go to the end, and from a standpoint of, for example, a fraudulent refund, return, have you seen any of those attempts or numbers occurring in the stores as a result of having that tag on that item?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, RFID has a huge play for us, not only on product that leaves the building, but also product that either comes back into the building or is presented at point of sale as having come back into the building, where in fact it hasn't ever come back into the building. It never left to begin with. It gives you that visibility that we never had before.
How do you resolve it? How do you approach that?
It's good teams in the store that are able to investigate that and get down to the root cause of the problem.
Right. Yeah, okay, I totally understand that. Ned, you had talked about the price reductions, and I've read a little bit about it. I mean, it really boils down to the price of the tag, correct? I mean,
It's a big part of it.
okay. And what are the other price considerations?
Well, you have the item level cost, the tag, as you mentioned. You have the platform cost. So in order to get the benefits, you need to have a software platform that allows you to interpret the information that comes from the physical hardware, which would be the readers. The readers can be fixed or they can be mobile. A lot of retailers like Macy's will connect a mobile reader to a mobile device. So it's really a platform, software, the item level tags, which is typically part of the cost of goods sold, as we mentioned earlier, up to the source. And then you have the readers, and that can be fixed or mobile. And that at a high level, over and above the professional services that knits everything together, would make up the bulk of the cost.
Now, one last question for you, Joe. If you look at the life cycle of RFID in a retailer, where are you in that life cycle? I mean, are you still kind of like in the developmental stages, or where are you with it?
I wouldn't say that we're in the developmental. We're, to Ned's point before that he'd used, we're in the mature stage of RFID. We've really perfected its use case inside of the stores, and now we're at the point where we're just exploring what we can add on, what we can do. When you put RFID on a product, there is millions of possibilities of what you can do with it. Yeah. That you simply got to get the RFID tag on. And when you look at the LPRC standpoint on the zones of influence, and you look at Zone 5, which is outside of the four walls of a building, RFID has a huge play in that Zone 5. Being able to identify your product when it's outside of your building after it's left your building. Right. With EAS, you don't have that. With RFID, you absolutely do. You can tie back that you specifically own that piece of product.
One last question. If you look at the benefits and the applications, there still seems to be some hesitancy or just lack of development of RFID out there in the retail world. What's the hurdle to market? What are the biggest hurdles to the market?
Well, you're competing against a lot of other essential technologies. As we've talked all about, retail has been disrupted in a very big way by social media, mobility, and several other things. And so retailers have to make hard decisions around, do we put more access points in a store? Do we double down on warehouse management systems, omni-channel platforms? RFID fits into that mix of, I would say, the top 5 mission critical investment challenges. So we compete against, I think, some of the most essential platforms that a retailer would have to make a decision on. So I think that's a part of it. I think the other part of it is there's still a little bit of education that needs to take place, and the LPRC has been a great place to come and validate some of our findings and share it in a environment that allows other folks to understand just how important it can be, not only to the asset protection business, but to their overall business.
What's your opinion, Joe? What's the hurdle for LP, for our world, to be able to?
I think Ned hit it on the head there. Education and people truly understanding that there is a valid use case for it. RFID, when you go from nothing to implementing it, it's a daunting task. And when you look at a big box retailer like Macy's that has been able to take on that challenge and be able to scale this to the amount of locations and the amount of SKUs and products that we have inside of our buildings, we've proven you can scale RFID, and you could scale it on a very big level. The continued challenges is just the getting the entire retail landscape to understand all of those benefits. And to Ned's point, when we have the opportunity to platform this at the LPRC and show our peers, the interesting thing in retail asset protection, it's far different than anything else in retail. Anything else in retail is always very competitive. We're not competitive against each other inside of retail asset protection. We have one role, and it's to eradicate shrink and shortage. And if we don't work together, we'll never make that a reality. So it's a completely different perspective. And in retail asset protection, we have the ability to educate our peers on what we're doing and be able to show them the behind the scenes of what's working for us and how we're winning, fighting shortage inside of our stores.
Are there some other retailers that are knocking at the door, so to speak, and asking you about the results and the program itself?
Absolutely.
Okay,
yeah, that's a continued conversation, whether it's Macy's direct with those retailers, Macy's working in a partnership with Sensormatic and Tyco. We continue to drive this to make sure that there's greater adoption across the retail landscape.
Well, congratulations on the rollout and where you are now with it and developing it for the industry. It's a fantastic development. So, and thank you for being here today.
We appreciate it.
Thanks for having us, Gus.
Well, that's it for this episode, ladies and gentlemen. We'd like to thank you for watching, and we'd also like to once again thank Sensormatic for sponsoring this series. So, until next time, let's keep them all safe out there. Thank you.